Have you ever heard of a place that modern satellites can't see? A blind spot on our world map. A corner shrouded in mystery and folklore. It's called Ether Valley. Legends say that thousands of years ago, a civilization known as the Cymorians thrived here. But they were unlike any other. They had no written language, no script, no books. They believed that truth, true history, couldn't be captured by ink and paper. It had to be lived, felt, and heard. So, they embedded their entire legacy, their fables and knowledge, into the very air itself and to the vibrations of the wind and the echoes of the valley. Tay! Kayedit the silent whisper. Our story begins, not in this mystical valley, but in a dusty old auction house in London. Here we meet Dr. Elara Vance, a brilliant but controversial archaeologist from Cambridge. Her colleagues often raised an eyebrow at her theories. Elara believed that the line between science and what we call magic was not a solid wall, but a gray, blurry space that modern society simply chose to ignore. One afternoon, while sifting through a mountain of forgotten books, her fingers brushed against a worn, leather-bound diary. It belonged to Lord Hamilton, a famed explorer who had mysteriously vanished in the year 1850. Elara's heart pounded as she turned to the final, frantic entry. Hamilton's handwriting was shaky, filled with a mix of awe and terror. He wrote, "I have heard them. The stones speak, but to hear that voice, one needs a soul, not whose ears. The Cymorians have hidden their entire history, their fables, within the waves of the wind. I was so close to the silent whisper, but my greed blinded me. ... Tucked between the brittle pages was a map, not of any known land, but of a desolate, uncharted section of the Andes Mountains. For Elara, this wasn't just a discovery. It was a calling. The opportunity of a lifetime. But such a monumental find could not stay secret for long. News travels fast, especially in the shadowy world of ancient artifacts. The discovery reached the ears of the Obsidian Corporation, a ruthless organization infamous for plundering historical sites and selling priceless treasures on the black market. Their leader, the cold and calculating Victor Crane, saw the diary not as a key to history, but as a key to immense wealth and power. He immediately began to track Elara's every move. The quiet academic pursuit had just turned into a dangerous game of cat and mouse. Elara's journey to the unknown began in the vibrant, ancient city of Cusco, Peru. Knowing she couldn't face the treacherous Andes alone, she hired a local guide, a man named Inti. Inti was a man of the mountains, his face a testament to the sun and wind. His family had passed down stories for generations, and all of them carried the same stark warning. Ether Valley was a place of no return, a place where mortals dared not tread. Signora Ainti, Koshand, his voice low and serious. The wind there does not just blow, it sings, and that song it drives men mad. Elara managed a small, brave smile, but a cold knot of fear tightened in her stomach. For 3 grueling days, they trekked through dense, humid jungles and scaled unforgiving mountain paths. The modern world began to fade away, replaced by the raw, untamed power of nature. Then, they reached a point where the world seemed to hold its breath. The GPS on Elara's phone flickered and died. Compasses spun uselessly. The air grew heavy, thick with a strange, unnerving silence. It felt like the calm before a storm, but this was no ordinary calm. Suddenly, the sky turned a menacing shade of gray, and a fierce storm erupted out of nowhere. The wind howled, but it wasn't a natural sound. It was a chorus of whispers, thousands of voices speaking at once, a cacophony that seemed to claw at the edges of sanity. It was exactly as Inti had warned, and through the chaos of the storm, another sound ripped through the air, the rhythmic thumping of helicopter blades. Victor Crane had caught up. His helicopter roared overhead, a mechanical beast against the ancient, whispering sky. Crane wasn't just following, he was racing her, trying to reach the valley's entrance first. Elara's heart sank. This was no longer a scientific expedition. It was a race for history itself, guided by Inti's instincts and the fading light. They scrambled towards a narrow fissure in a sheer rock face, the entrance marked on Hamilton's map. As Crane's team began their descent, Elara and Intai slipped through the crack in the mountain, leaving the raging storm behind them. They stepped into a world of profound silence and breathtaking wonder. And then, for the first time, Elara saw it. The Hall of Echoes. It was a massive, cavernous space, filled with colossal stone pillars that soared into the darkness above. They weren't randomly placed. They were arranged with incredible precision, like the strings of a giant, cosmic harp. As the wind from the outside world filtered through the entrance and passed between these pillars, it transformed. The chaotic whispers of the storm became a surreal, hauntingly beautiful melody. This wasn't just architecture. It was an instrument built by an ancient people to play the music of the earth. Elara stood frozen, realizing she was standing inside the very heart of the silent whisper. The fables of the Cymorians were not just stories. They were a song waiting to be heard. And the performance was just beginning. What secrets did this ancient music hold? And with Victor Crane closing in, would Elara have enough time to listen? We'll have to find out next time. Thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. See you then, in the heart of the Valley of Echoes, a place whispered about only in hushed tones, stood a colossal stone altar. I cautiously approached, pulling out my sound frequency modulator. This wasn't your everyday gadget. It was a marvel of engineering I designed myself, capable of analyzing the intricate patterns of the wind and translating them into understandable language. With a deep breath, I switched it on. The chaotic symphony of the valley, the howl and rush of air, suddenly coalesced. It focused, sharpened, and then it spoke. It wasn't a human voice, not even close. It was deeper, more ancient, like listening to time itself. The first fable unfurled, a story etched into the very air we were breathing. It was Kayed, the tale of the stolen sun. The voice spoke of the ancient Cymorians, the people who lived in perpetual darkness. One brave youth, yearning for light, embarked on a perilous journey and managed to steal a fragment of the sun itself. But he didn't hoard this treasure. Instead, he climbed the highest mountain and placed the glowing shard at its peak, bathing the world in light for all to share. His selfless act came at the ultimate cost. The intense heat consumed him, turning his body to ash. The lesson was as clear as the light he'd brought. The light of knowledge is meant for everyone, but the one who bears it must always be prepared to pay a price. Before I could fully process the depth of that story, the wind shifted, and a new tale began. This one was the weeping of the greedy river. It told of a mighty river that, in its arrogance, decided it wanted to hoard all its water. It refused to flow, refused to merge with the vast sea, believing its own volume was all that mattered. But water that doesn't move stagnates. The once mighty river slowly transformed, its vibrant currents turning into a murky, poisonous swamp. Life withered on its banks, and the river itself became a symbol of death. The moral was powerful. Flow is life. To stagnate is to die. I was completely mesmerized, my hands working furiously to record every word, every nuance. These weren't just bedtime stories. They were complex codes, revealing the Cymorians' astonishingly advanced science and philosophy. They'd used sound waves to cut stone with precision. They communicated with nature. They lived in harmony with the world's vibrations. This was a discovery that would rewrite history. But my awe was shattered by a harsh, unwelcome voice. Dr. Vance, it sneered. I spun around to see Victor Crane, a man whose reputation was built on plundering history, not preserving it. He was flanked by a squad of armed mercenaries, their faces grim. Beautiful stories. Crane smirked, his eyes glinting with greed. But I'm not here for bedtime tales. I want the technology. The weapon. How did they turn sound into power? His gaze swept over the ancient pillars, not with wonder, but with avarice. He saw not a sanctuary, but an arsenal. Ignoring my frantic protests, Crane barked orders at his men. Start digging. Find the machine. It's gotta be under one of these pillars. I screamed at him. No. Stop. Don't move those. They're not just decorations. They maintain the acoustic balance of the entire valley. If you move them, the sound waves will spiral out of control. My words were lost on him, drowned out by his own ambition. The moment his men pried the first massive pillar from its foundation, the sweet, melodic voice of the wind twisted. It contorted into a sharp, ear-splitting shriek that tore through the air. On the screen of my modulator, a terrifying new name appeared, the scream of silence. The ground began to vibrate violently, as if the valley itself was in agony. Rocks and boulders started tumbling from the mountain peaks around us. The wind was no longer telling stories, it was screaming in fury. As chaos erupted, one final, chilling Cymorian fable flashed across my device. It was Kayet, the silent whisper, and its message was a dire warning. When man seeks to possess rather than listen, the echo will inevitably destroy its source. Crane's mercenaries collapsed, dropping their tools and clutching their ears, their faces masks of pure agony. The sound waves were attacking their very nervous systems, paralyzing them where they stood. Crane himself, realizing his fatal error, tried to stumble away, but it was too late. A massive rock slide thundered down, sealing the valley's exit and his fate. In the midst of the sonic storm, I looked at my guide, Inti, his face a mixture of terror and determination. He pointed a shaking finger toward a small cavity beneath the central altar. There, he yelled over the din. We have to correct the frequency. We have to sing back to it. He was right. The only way to stop this was not to fight the sound, but to harmonize with it, to restore the balance. With trembling hands, I set my modulator to reverse mode. I selected the recording of the very first fable, the story of sacrifice and selflessness. Taking a deep breath, I broadcasted back into the raging storm at maximum volume. The artificial, mechanical sound of my device met the raw, natural fury of the wind. For a moment, they clashed, but then something miraculous happened. They began to merge, creating a strange, unearthly harmony. The high-pitched scream began to subside. The violent vibrations softened, and slowly, painstakingly, the earth grew calm again. We had survived, but the valley was scarred beyond recognition. The magnificent stone pillars lay shattered, a testament to Crane's greed. Victor Crane and his men were gone, buried beneath tons of rock, consumed by the very power they sought to control. Inti and I scrambled out, barely escaping with our lives. The silence that followed more profound than any sound I had ever heard. Back in the quiet safety of my study, the weight of my discovery settled upon me. I opened my diary and wrote, I have unearthed the lost fables of the Cymorians, but I will not publish them. The world is not yet ready for this knowledge. We still prefer possessing over listening. I looked at the cassettes containing the recorded voice of the wind, the wisdom of an entire civilization. They held the power to change the world, but also to destroy it. I placed them in a heavy lockbox. Walking to the edge of the Thames River, I held the key in my hand for a long moment before throwing it into the deep, murky water. The secrets of the Cymorians were safe. Again, I knew that one day, humanity might find its way back to that valley, but I hoped with all my heart that when they do, they will come with open hearts, ready to listen, not just with their ears. Now when they do leave, until then, the silent whisper will remain where it belongs, deep within the layers of the wind. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more adventures into the unknown. See you next time.